Hello, everyone. It's Charlene Lee, and I'm excited to be here today to talk to you all about a very hot and emerging trend, which is agentic AI. So today we're going to dive into what's real, what's the reality versus what's the hype that we're hearing all over the place, because 2025 is supposed to be was supposed to be the year of the agent of agentic AI. So let's see if that's actually true, what's really happening, what's hype out there. And in particular, as a business leader, what do you need to know when you go and talk to your IT department over there coming to you and saying, let's build an agent? Okay, so buckle in. We've got a lot to talk about today. I would love for you to share what has your experience been with agents? Are you building AI agents? What do they look like? What has worked, what hasn't worked. Have you gotten your hands dirty with N8N? I'm starting to experiment with it. It's quite fun, the things you can build, but I can tell you, it's a lot. So let's get into this. So I do have some slides here today. I'll be sharing them with you here, but you can get them at bit.ly/agentic hype reality. All right. So first of all, I really want to dive a little bit into what the hype is. So this is a big market. Again, just lots of big numbers, right? It's small. It's pretty big today, 6 billion, and growing to 107 billion with AI. And here are some of the things, literally verbatim, of things that I have heard from vendors. It's fully autonomous AI replacing knowledge workers. First of all, that sounds interesting and also a little bit scary to just replace people completely. Seamless development is what they're promising. Universal applicability and immediate ROI. And I can tell you, and you're all probably chuckling to yourself, yeah, that's all sort of the marketing hype. And I like to say that this isn't just about agentic AI. It's sort of just another regular Monday in the tech world that people say these things. So I think that's the hype that we've been hearing about, that it's here. If you're not using agents, then you're falling behind. Get on board. You should be automating everything. The reality is something it's different. Is that I do believe that this has been a year of tremendous development with agents, and I'll talk a little bit about the technology, just a little bit. But it's really much more. Think about this as the next decade of agents, and that we're seeing some people who are doing really good adoption of this, that they are achieving some sort of ROI within the first year, and so they do work. Agents do work, but they are not this like magic wand that you can wave and things poof are automated. They work really well with structured workflows with very clear boundaries. And so we'll go into a little bit about what those look like. It's things like claims processing, but it's not strategic planning, for example. So I do believe that this is coming, but the timeline is a lot longer than people are saying. And I do also believe that if you're laying the foundation now, today, to do what you can do with the agents of today, the technology is just going to get better. And by understanding what they can do and what they can't do, and in particular, what needs to change inside of your organization to enable agents to work, that's the real learning that can happen right now. So, the important thing right now is less about building agents that can automate everything and truly understanding the state of your organization and how agent ready it is, and understanding what you need to prioritize in order for agents to work. So you have these two things happening in parallel. You have the agent technology getting better and better every single day. The ability of these agents to actually do work on your behalf in an autonomous way is amazing, but it's still under development. And at the same time, you need to understand how your organization needs to get ready, not just with data, but also with things like strategic planning, how you're going to integrate these things, and especially how will you reimagine your organization? Because if you're just automating existing workflows, then you're missing the point. All right, so let's get into what are some of these things that you need to be doing. So first of all, I want to talk a little bit about the technology. This is my really simple first step into what is going on here. And I see some comments coming in, so we'll talk a little bit about it. So keep the comments, and especially if you have questions around what agents are and what they can actually do, please put them into the chat. I can see all the questions that you have. All right. So the technology, what's happened, there are four different things. First of all, we have models now that can do advanced reasoning and planning. So you may have seen this if you click on, if you ask AI to do a simple, a fairly complex request, you can see it taking multiple steps to go through and break down that task into various steps. It can take reasoning, it can do chain of thought reasoning there, and so it can create plans of how to tackle the problem, and it can think through a complex problem. So its ability to plan is something that's very new and different that's come up over the past 2 years. We also have these new abilities of these tools to do what we call function calling. So, meaning that they can use APIs, these application protocol interfaces, to connect with a reservation system at a restaurant, for example. So, it can check it can tap into your calendar, see what's available, look at restaurant reviews, and then make an RSVP, and then create a calendar invite on your calendar. So, that's just an example of a very simple agent that can go out and interact with the world and not just be confined to its chat interface. The third thing is that it now has extended context and memory. So, meaning you can put in a huge amount of text, a huge amount of information, access to databases, and it can take that entire load of data, put it inside its memory, and be able to understand everything and be able to process it. So, I'll give an example. We're just finishing up the book. So, Katrin Welsh and I, one of the things we did was to go back and look at all the drafts that we have written. And we're talking about thousands and thousands of pages. And we could ask the AI, look at our existing manuscript, look at all of our existing drafts. What did we cut that might be valuable? What should we remember? Because we don't remember what was in a draft that we wrote a year ago. But what are some things that aren't included in here that we should consider? And so it can make this big, long list of everything. It can understand and compare between drafts. It can look inside the manuscript, and we're talking about, at that point, millions of words, and be able to hold that all in its memory. So just amazing ability to just remember things. And then finally, we have these orchestration frameworks. And these are the abilities to connect lots of smaller tasks and agents together so you can orchestrate them working together. One of the best examples of this is a platform called Crew AI. And what it does, it defines a crew of agents. So it has these sort of pre-made agents that can handle different tasks. And what it can do is just understand how these agents work together. So the only thing you have to do is to say, these are the roles of the agents I want to have, and this is the goal. And then Crew AI and these platforms can orchestrate them handing off information, deciding who's going to do what tasks. And I'll give you an example later on of what a multi-agent system looks like and what it does. All right, so I'm going to take a break and just look at some of the comments here. So hello, Jay Bryan. Thank you for posting up the slide link. Hello, Albert and I see also, Albert, you're coming in from Brazil. So great to hear from you. Kenny coming in from North Carolina. And Jay Johnson has this tool, this comment: imagine agents with no rules of conduct. And we're going to talk about that next. It's one of the biggest gaps that we're seeing when it comes to agents. So I think we're talking about a very important thing here. And Jay Bryan has a video, so definitely want to go check out that video, Jay. So curious about what's in there. All right, so let me go on and talk a little bit about some of the ways to think about AI, agentic AI. And one of the things to understand is, where are we in the development of agentic AI? And again, I've come across this sort of these levels of autonomy, and it's very much taken from self-driving cars. Like, how much are they actually capable of doing? And it wasn't like we got autonomous driving cars overnight. There's a level of autonomy that's built over time. And so, for example, when you have no AI or rules-based AI, then it's a fixed logic and it can't take into account anything that's changing. So that's not agentic. Now we have level two, where a lot of agents are able to use these tools. So you can understand the context of what you're doing, go and connect to the various tasks, and it's starting to be a little bit more agentic in that it can go and do things for you. But again, it's sort of just using tools. It's still just being defined by you what that task is and is going in and doing things autonomously. Now, level 3 is where we're seeing a lot more advances coming out now. This is where it can take that multi-step reasoning that I talked about before. And instead of you having to spell out exactly what you wanted to go do, it can figure out which is the right tool I should use, which is the right data I should use. So this is production ready now. We don't see a lot of people using it yet, but we're seeing some early examples of that happening. And I'll give you an example in a second. And then level 4 is where you have self-improvement. It's taking multiple agents and orchestrating them and figuring out, well, this agent is doing a good job, but that one could do a potentially different job. It's going back and telling them do things differently. So these new things are happening now, and I'm seeing some organizations doing this and experimenting with it. And then we have full autonomy where it's doing original thinking, it's doing tasks without you even recognizing it, it's being proactive. It's like that chief of staff that just goes and does things before you even think of it. And that's a true digital knowledge worker, and that's getting into the territory of artificial general intelligence. So level 4 and 5, that definitely we're not there for. We're seeing some experiments with it, and most of the agentic AI that's out there now are level 2 and 3. And I think where we get into problems is when people expect level 4 and 5 autonomy from the technology today. We're just not there. And so we want this bright, shiny object, and it just doesn't exist today. So I want to make sure we're setting the right expectations of what agentic AI can do and what it can't, the hype and the reality. And so to prepare for this reality that we have today, there are a couple things. First, I want to give some very quick examples. So in insurance, we're seeing companies now have agents taking care of the claims processing. They can look through the claim. Again, most of them are pretty straightforward. They can process it. They can take into account various contingencies and questions that people may have. But again, if it's more complex, it'll recognize, I can't handle this, and we'll hand it over back to a human who can handle it. Healthcare, uh, again, an insurance reimbursement, is this there? Pre-approvals, it's helping with that whole process, which is just a pain for both doctors and insurance companies. You have some organizations like Cleveland Clinic and Mayo Clinic now using AI tools to help with symptom analysis. So they can churn through an entire medical history, understand what's in there. And it would take a human just hours to go process that. And now they can understand that, categorize it, and then give it to the doctor to then say, well, it could be this, talk to the patient, again, just much more intelligently. So I'd like to say that agents are handling again that administrative burden, taking on the things that AI can do extremely well, and letting the humans focus on that care. And then when you have banking, again, loan approvals, here's all this documentation, can give a preliminary read to the loan officer of what are the pros and cons, the questions to ask. So just again, understanding what is in those documents and being able to give them to a person to be able to do something with it. Same thing with fraud detection. Level 1, base level, is this fraud or not? And if it's clearly fraud, then it can indicate it is or is not, or not clear, again, kick it over to a human. So where agents are shining today is when there's a lot of volume, a lot of material. It's very clearly rules-based with clear success criteria. And the key difference today that's different from just RPA, robotic process automation, is that is it is again has that bit of reasoning. So it can take a lot of information, not follow completely strict rules, if this, then that, and can apply that reasoning to a fixed situation to say, use this logic, use this criteria, use this rubric, and do the trade offs. And if it hits a certain level of processing for yes or processing for no, it can clear those. And that gray, murky stuff that it's not clear about, then again, then go to that human. So it's again using the examples here to just give you an idea. This is the reality of what agentic AI can do today. And again, it's just getting better and better all the time. So, a couple reasons about why most agents fail today. And again, I talk to a lot of companies who say, we're trying agents, they're not working, or we haven't tried them because we don't know what's possible. So when people are using it, what they're finding is that data quality makes a big difference. And so agents are only as good as your data. So, I want to caution, this is not about waiting for perfect data or clean data to be able to get started, because data is like is like life. The reality is life is messy and your data is messy. So this is knowing exactly what is the state of your data, how ready is it for an AI to be able to use it, and in the meantime, if you've identified a crucial strategic initiative to take and your data is just not ready for it, then find another initiative that it may be smaller, but your data is ready. And start with that, because you will learn so much from using that data, putting agents against it, that by the time your data is ready over here, you already have gone through a couple cycles with the other project and understood what works and doesn't work in your particular situation. Governance is another important thing. And this goes back to Jay Johnson's point about agents with no rules of conduct are going to fail. And so, do you have access to the right data? Is the agent have access, depending on who the person's using that agent and the people who are going to be using the outputs from that agent? Do they have the permission to use that data? So again, making sure that you have governance in place about what agents can do, what data they can access, what information can they actually do, and what decisions agents can help with, versus again having a human in the loop. So governance and thinking about that from day one, having that in place to evaluate these things is very important. I like to say legacy infrastructure, where things are highly structured with legacy data platforms and technology platforms. Again, agents don't understand data silos. Agents don't understand silos. They're thinking, wait a minute, I need to get that data in order to do this task. Why can't I get access to this? So this is about modernizing your platforms. We have a tremendous amount of uh, technology debt that we have to pay, and that includes, for example, making sure that you have API driven infrastructure that allows these agents to seamlessly go across an organization and retrieve the data it needs to, again with permission, and be able to re-engineer your processes. Again, if the right process to serve your customer needs to go across marketing, sales, and customer service, and your agents can't do that, then you have some significant problems. Then we look at pilot purgatory. Again, this is that whole idea of how do you make decisions in an organization? So we know that a lot of these horizontal benefits that are happening with AI, especially like with Microsoft Copilot, that's been put out to many enterprises, everyone's getting a little bit of benefit from it, but it's so diffuse, it's hard to measure. And yet, these 90% of use cases that are failing, they're very high value, but no one's really paying attention to them and saying which are the most important ones. So I do believe that this is a CEO mandate where you're looking at your business strategy to understand what your AI roadmap will look like. So prioritizing the most important aspects of AI and the most impactful ones that need to move forward is a particular barrier. And I've talked about this ad nauseum in the past, that AI is not a strategy, it's a technology that enables your business strategy. So a strategy should never begin with a tool or technology. So understand what your business strategy is, and then make sure you're applying AI to that strategy. And then again, the wrong use cases, as we talked about before. These open-ended strategic thinking, high level 5 automation are the wrong use cases to pursue. Go for and look for proven use cases. There are many, many case examples today that illustrate how agentic AI can work. Again, these high volume, fairly routine, that require a little bit of reasoning. that AI can provide to you to be able to do that automation. All right, a couple trends to watch. One of the things is that we're seeing again these enterprise co-pilots really moving aside to look at very function-based agents. These agents are redoing and rethinking the processes that you have for very specific areas. And so while I do believe that these enterprise-wide projects are very important, the work of agents is very specific and very particular. And so you can have an enterprise-wide approach to building agents, but the actual work is going to be very function and very specific to a process. Looking at multi-agent orchestration is an important trend to be watching. And so these are taking these very specialized agents that I just talked about and making sure they're working together well. So, for example, you might have a research agent that connects to an analytics agent and then a validation agent of the research against criteria that you have. And you have an orchestrating agent that sits on top of it to make sure they're all working together to achieve the goal you wanted. And so instead of building one agent that does everything, you're actually building these smaller agents across the board that you can put together and stitch together to make it all work together. And so there are these emerging standards like MCP, so modular context protocols. And so these are brand new things. They were just developed in the spring, like April, May or so. So brand new. These are new technologies that allow that kind of orchestration. So we're really new and early in this process. But I think this is a fast developing area where you can create these small specialized agents. Frankly, you can pull them off the shelf. And then you can stitch them together with these multi-agent agents, orchestration agents that, again, are just coming off the shelf. So again, and I do believe that commercial platforms are going to win over do it yourself. And so let me just do a quick dive into, I'll just come back to the last things about commercial agents. So the thing, I think there are many commercial platforms already available for you to build agents. And so use these for your first couple of agents. And it's still going to feel like you're doing it yourself. And I'll give an example in just a second. But using these off-the-shelf agents are going to allow you to build agents in a few weeks. And I'm talking about 1 to 2 weeks before you can get a really full running agent available working for you. And again, focus on those high ROI, well-defined workflows that you can just take and say, let's put an agent against it. And then what you're doing essentially is building this organizational muscle to figure out how to deploy agents well. Once you do that, then you can figure out, well, do we need a more custom approach? So don't start with do-it-yourself agents, building it from scratch. And you may have an IT department that says, oh, we can build that for you. Sure, but let's practice first on existing platforms that already are there that can just help us get that really fast start and deploy agents as quickly as possible. So again, we can understand what we have inside our organization and what is it that we need. So these are some of the ones that are out there. Again, there are many existing enterprise grade platforms. So if you're already using Salesforce, if you're already using IBM or Microsoft or Google as your foundation for your IT infrastructure, start there. They have a whole library of agents that if you're using things like that, or if you're using SAP, go and look at their agent library and say, that looks like an interesting one. Push a button, deploy it, see if it works. There are also agent builder platforms, and these are really fun because they can take an existing process that you have, they sit on top of those platforms and can do more specialized things. Then there are workforce focused platforms. These are the things that are, again, a little bit more are a little bit more independent. So one I've been playing with is N8N, which allows you to take, for example, I have a gazillion news feeds for AI newsletters and articles and reports that I just constantly, it's a huge amount, and they have a lot of overlap. So I'm building an agent now that will scan through all of those things and just give me a summary of the most important things. And I've trained it to understand the things that I'm curious about. I can also have it go look into that library of all my feeds and be able to again query that instead of just looking at everything. So a curated AI newsletter reader for me, so that I don't have to spend hours plowing through just thousands and thousands of pages. You can highlight it, then I can go directly to the source. So that's great for me, and I can do that with Make. I'm trying with Zapier, which I love and have been using for years. Zapier again has its tradition of this and that, and it's great for SMBs that may not have these large enterprise tools, but you still want to connect some of the different systems that you're using. And then if you really want to get into things, you can start using some of the developer platforms. And again, these just give you a little bit of a heads up because like LangChain and Crew AI, they have pre-built agents that you can then do some light customization on, but they've done a lot of the heavy lifting. For example, I talked about Crew AI before that would do a lot of that multi-agent orchestration. So again, there are tools out there that can make building agents a lot easier. So instead of trying to build from scratch, go and see what's already there. Literally push a button, see if it works. And if it doesn't, you'll have learned something about what works and what doesn't work. All right, so let me go on and see what other comments there are here. Mahesh, I'm glad you're finding this to be comprehensive, trying to do this. Lisa, my good friend Lisa, it says, love the news aggregator agent idea. Lisa will talk offline about how to make this work. And Albert, so thank you so much. Muito obrigado. So you're very welcome. All right, let me just close out here by just talking a little bit about just how to get started. What should you do now? So the first thing, again, is always start with strategy. The person driving your agentic AI strategy should not be your CIO, it should be your CEO. And the goal here is to connect one of your top 3 strategic objectives back to why are we building agents? And so set these growth and innovation objectives, not just efficiency and productivity. Because if you're only trying to get productivity and efficiency, you're missing the point. AI is a hugely transformational tool. And using it to that full strategic capability is where the game is at. Again, don't just transform, don't just automate, transform. So pick one process to redesign, not just to automate, but to redesign. How could we do this differently? Because an agentic AI is doing this process versus humans. And then finally, make sure you're building the foundation, a really good foundation with good data, strong APIs that connect your various platforms, clear governance about how decisions are going to be made, and then also thinking about how you're going to manage these agents. One of the companies I've been talking to is McKinsey, and they have built this internal platform called Lily that their consultants use. And they were just giving me a quick update that they now have 25,000 internal agents working. And so, as you can imagine, having a platform to make sure you're understanding what these agents are doing, who has permission to do what, having governance over them is extremely important. So make sure you're building those foundations from the very beginning because you don't want to have, oh, we have a couple hundred agents now. How are we going to manage them? Think about that from the very beginning. All right, I think that's all I have for today. Yep, that's all I have. Let me just finish up here. I will be taking a few weeks off. I'm going out of the country, out off the grid. I'm going to Antarctica for a few weeks. So that's a long trip. So I will be back on December 2nd. And we'll be talking about one of the interesting things that came up in our research for the book. So Katja and I, Welsh and I are literally putting the finishing touches, sending it off to the publisher. So we're very excited. And it is this idea of the rise of superhumans who have integrated intelligence of the best of AI and best of humans. So we'll do a deep dive into this concept of superhumans and what does it mean? What does it look like? And in particular, why is this important to us? And it's not something we oftentimes hear in the dialogue around AI because it's all about efficiencies and how organizations can create value. But what if we were to create a different type of value, a value with a big V that is going to help us, again, do the things that we uniquely can do as humans. So thank you so much for joining for today. Please stay in touch. Tell me, give me an update about what you're doing with agents. I would love to hear what you're finding. Again, it's how we do our research is to hear from people like you. And again, thank you so much for joining, and I'll see you in a few weeks. Take care.